So I'll be introducing the next speaker. Molly is with Noah Homes. She's actually the CEO of Noah Homes down in Spring Valley, San Diego. And she will discuss Noah Homes' Affinity Choice Community, which provides independence and high-quality services to people with similar wants and needs through shared cost operations and infrastructure. Please help me welcome Molly Nocon.
I'm forwarding the slide by just using this. How am I moving the slide? Okay. Okay. Well, good morning. We're on the downhill slope here. We're almost done. I promise I have lots of pictures, so it'll be a fun presentation. I want to thank you all for having me here. As Ashley said, I'm the CEO of Noah Homes. I've been in that position for 10 years. I've had the immense pleasure of serving now 90 residents in 10 beautiful homes. We're on approximately 11 manicured community acres. We employ about 110 employees, and we have 25 vehicles that get our residents to and from their work programs, their jobs, their volunteer opportunities, and all sorts of other things on the weekends that I can't even keep track of. So it's a pretty amazing place. To live at Noah Homes, you need to have a job, a volunteer position, or some life skills program that gets you out in the community. So we're very community bound and very passionate about having them in the community. You know, I think we all agree we've had some excellent speakers today, and I think the one thing we all also agree on is that we are all preaching to the choir. I think we all know we are the choir. And in talking to Sister Rosemary, when we leave this room, what are we as choir members going to commit to doing? And I think it's really easy for all of us to sit here and be in this room and have a lot of ideas, but we have to keep those ideas going when we get back. So I told my staff, I thought maybe we should sing so we can really be a choir, but they weren't excited about it, so I guess we'll just go on with the presentation. But I think a choir has to have that singing going on just to be, you know, the choir. So keep that in mind as we go through this. That's not making it go forward. Okay. So sometimes I think we all find out that when a system doesn't work, it just ends up not working out. And maybe there was a desired path, but we, because we're so innovative and so smart and have other ideas, we think there's a better way. And so as creatures that we are, we design our own path. And it's kind of called the desired path. And I think all of us in this work industry has figured out there is a desired path. It's not always the path that we've been given. We have to find the path that works. Lots of conversations about aging here, and I was one of the ones that had to raise my hand about that, over 50, 40, something plus. But how many here are baby boomers? Okay, so there's a lot of us. So forget that millennial stuff. Let's talk about us. We're living a lot longer. 50 is the new 40, 70 is the new 60. We're all going to be here a while. And an awful lot of folks we're taking care of are in the same boat. They're going to be here a while. They're living longer, and they want us to be able to take care of them. So how are we going to do that? And it's important that we think ahead and be innovative. This is how we decided to do it at Noah Homes. We're very proud to show you a picture of our 2 Affinity Choice Community Memory Care homes. They are the last 2 homes that we were able to build on our major use permit. We're about 20 minutes east of downtown San Diego. This is my think big moment, because everything we do here needs to happen, and we need to think big, and we need to be the big voice and the big elephant in the room to make things happen. These are 2 state-of-the-art memory care homes. They're the first of their kind in California. We built them as a pilot for the state to help them understand what needs to happen to take care of our folks as they're aging. It's a big problem. We all know it. We all have it. These homes are full. They were full within 6 months. We have a huge waiting list. Noah Homes, I like to tell Sister Rosemary, we are the mini version of Misericordia on the West Coast. We love our community. We love our beautifully manicured grounds. We have about 11 acres total, and we have 10 homes, so we're on a much smaller scale. But it just so happened that when we opened these homes on February 6th, the Director of Developmental Services happened to be in San Diego. Her name is Nancy Bargman. So she was able to come over and see these homes open, and she saw probably 30 or 40 residents running around in complete mayhem, helping their friends move in, welcoming the new residents, watching staff trying to get everything under control and get them all moved in. And we all said, welcome to our beautiful community. This is what life is all about. This is how you greet your friends. This is how you get them to be comfortable in their home. You welcome them. She came out with the director of San Diego Regional Center, who was our funder, and said, These are beautiful. I'm so glad you built these 10-bed homes. I hope you can help us build 4-bed homes in the community. I said, that's wonderful. And I thought, what happened to the economy of scale? What happened to you understanding that from these homes, I can now tell a parent when your child comes to us at age 18, they can stay with us through end of life. They never have to leave if that's their choice. That's not what she understood. She understood this was a great model that should be a 4-bed model. And so we're still working with her and still working on it. So it is work in progress. This is my inspiration. This is my brother, Herbie. Herbie was known as the sheriff of Noah. He lived there very happily for 14 years. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's sometime around age 56. He died just shy of his 60th birthday. And he didn't know that he was gone from Noah. And fortunately for me, I had a staff that was incredibly loving of him. He'd been with them and was their family. He had to leave 9 days before he passed away. And fortunately for me and my family, he didn't know he was gone. He still was in his own world and his own land, and all of us came to visit him, and he passed very peacefully 9 days later. But I knew there were a whole bunch of his friends right behind him. He was a boomer. There's a whole bunch of his friends that were living right there, and I saw 3 or 4 more coming right down that path. And I said, what do we do? So, of course, I went to DDS at that point and said, what do we do? We've got a lot of people in this situation. How are we going to help them? Their answer was, very candidly, we don't know what to do. We're looking to you to help us. We thought they would all be dead by now. That was the answer, because they should have died in their 40s. They aren't supposed to live into their 50s or their 60s. God forbid they live into their 70s. We have a couple of people that are 72 and thriving. We're happy about that. It's wonderful. But that was unfortunately the answer. They didn't know what to do, and they didn't have any answers. So I think we all know that it's upon us. It's the choir that needs to make this happen. We all certainly understand increasing longevity is something we're all dealing with. It's a wonderful thing. It's a hard thing. In the 80s, 28 years old in the disability world was wonderful. We're now looking at 60 plus. That's wonderful also. But for anybody dealing with Down syndrome, that also means there's a very strong possibility of Alzheimer's. That's not something any of us want to look at, but they are far more likely to get it, and we'll talk about that a bit more. But that is what we're dealing with. Here's the prevalence of what's happening with dementia in Down syndrome patients. All the studies that we're working with, we work with the UCSD Down Syndrome Clinic in San Diego. It's showing that more than 75% of those with Down syndrome age 60 and over will develop Alzheimer's. That is 6 times more likely than all the rest of us. So they are a target population that is going to have lots of trouble. We have 20 people in our memory care home. 2/3 of them have Down syndrome. And that's what we're seeing coming down the road here. We need to be able to help them, and we need to make sure that they're going to have their homes. And we've had some that have been diagnosed as early as their 30s. So it's not an older disease. It's happening quickly for them. These are some of my gang. These are the guys that live at Noah Homes. These are the people that we need to help and make sure that they have their home. The guy on your right, his name is Patrick. Patrick's lived at Noah Home for 25 years, or actually I know him longer than that, 28 years, I believe. Patrick worked at McDonald's and Vons for 25 years. He was on the strike line. He did salads and cleaned up at McDonald's and was a fixture there for a long time. And one day Patrick got in the van to go to work, and when they let him out, he said, why am I here? What are we doing? And he didn't understand what was happening. We got him on some medication, we stabilized him, but when we started building the memory care homes and told people what they were for, he came into my office one day and he said, I think I need a bed in those homes. I think I'm slipping. And we were shocked because that wasn't who Patrick was. Patrick was this very happy, wonderful guy. He still is. But he had enough understanding to know, I think I need that help. So Patrick's now living happily in the memory care home, much to Sister Mary's chagrin, who worked with us for many years. Patrick was a Kiss fan. So Patrick has a full room of Kiss dolls, Kiss paraphernalia. He dresses up as the Kiss lead guy every year for Halloween. And Sister Mary used to think, oh, I know they need to have their rights, but why Kiss? So that's one of the first rooms we always show off when we go to the memory care homes. You know, just like the rest of us, our folks love their independence. They love getting involved in the community. They love going to ball games. They love being in walks. These are all the fun things that we get to do at Noah. Bowling is huge for us, of course. Special Olympics, basketball. Sandra, who's here with me, my COO, is still recovering from a 7-day cruise that they all got back from about 2 weeks ago. We took 26 residents with just 6 staff on a 7-day Mexican Riviera cruise. It was the most fun that they'd ever had because it was a huge group. Somehow I managed to stay back. I don't know how that happened, but thank you, staff, for taking care of that for me. They had a blast, and it was some of the most remarkable commentaries we got from people that had never seen a group of people with disabilities that big before and never saw how much fun they would have. And I don't know how many discos they shut down, but my understanding was Lights Out did not happen at 7 or 8 like it normally happens at NOAA. It happened a lot later, and there again, somebody had to stay back and take care of NOAA, so that was me. This is Karen. Karen is a resident at NOAA. She was a long-term resident. She was also a worker, I believe, at Pizza Hut. I'll get the correction if I'm wrong later, but a long-time worker. Karen was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at 43, and she was diagnosed about a year or so before the memory care home started. And we hoped that she'd make it to the memory care homes. She didn't. Karen was one of those people that had a lot of outbursts, a lot of anxiety, and it was too much stress on the rest of the homes with our staffing levels to be able to keep her. She was in a 6-bed home at that point. So we had to move her to a nursing home. It was not something we wanted to do, but we had no choice. We sent our own staff over to help her as much as we could. Family was there. Somebody was visiting her almost every day. Even with those visits, Karen lost 40 pounds in the 4 months she lived there. The staffing ratio was 1 to 15, and the commentary about her eating was, we put the tray down. It's up to her to eat. If we have time, we help her. We can't continue to let this happen. Her family actually asked us to film her final days so that we could show others what could not happen anymore in our population. And we use that as part of our video to show DDS why these homes are so important. So Karen was certainly one of our stars as we moved ahead in this program. This guy is named Richard. So show of hands, you have 2 choices. Is Richard acting out with a behavior, or is Richard being Richard? How many think it's behavior? How many think it's Richard being Richard? Oh, you all pass. You can work in Richard's house. That's Richard being Richard. But we all know, as we heard about the crisis for DSPs, how many young folks coming in would understand this is Richard being Richard, or that Richard is being aggressive, or he's having a behavior, or he's having an outburst. Richard is the ambassador of NOAA. Everybody who comes to NOAA knows Richard. Richard got to give 300 girls in Sprites a rose because Richard dressed up in a tuxedo, and they all said, well, we can't have our event without Richard. Will he come? So this is Richard, and that's who he is, and he loves being that. But we are just as concerned about trying to keep our DSPs in place and keep staff that know people, because that's what keeps their life happy and keeps them robust. So we need to make sure that we continue on in this quest to keep our staff there and to keep them well paid, and we all know how hard it is. So this is something that we struggled with as we were building the homes, the lack of solutions. There were no guidelines for how to take care of the elderly. As we all know, they weren't supposed to be here, so there were no plans in place. No memory care homes existed. At that time, Sister Rosemary was getting ready to build hers, nothing in California. We wanted to build a residential model because we lived in a residential area and we needed a residential model, not an assisted living. And we needed something smaller because we needed to be able to fit it within the footprint of NOAA homes. On average, I think we all know in an assisted living facility, the average age right now is 87. And believe it or not, people are only there for about 14 to 18 months. It's not a long-term situation. And I was shocked to hear that in our travels as we were looking how to make the best practice for NOAA homes. So is it really fair to put a 40 to 50-year-old person with a disability in an assisted living where people are averaging an age of 87 years old? It's not. They don't have the facility, they don't have the care, and they certainly don't have the training. And there's no specialized training for our population. So we unfortunately dubbed it the 3 Ds. They diaper them, they drug them, and then they die. And that's what we told DDS. You can't continue to send these people to nursing homes without care, without training, because that's exactly what happens. And we all know the statistics when you go to a nursing home. It doesn't last very long. We all know it's a national issue. We look at 5 large housing hurdles for people with disabilities. Obviously, a big one, affordability. Our lady from I need my own Alzheimer's homes many times, but that lady was talking about autism yesterday in the Bay Area. If you live in the Bay Area and you make $150,000, you are at poverty level. That is what we're dealing with in California right now. You can sell a studio apartment in downtown San Francisco for over $1 million. So tell me where somebody with a disability with about $900 to spend for rent is going to find a place to live. I looked at the DDS website, and there were about 2,300 people on a waiting list for all of the regional centers combined looking for housing. And those are just the ones that have signed up. So we know there's a crisis. I think what really brought to mind how we need to be this choir and need to think big is that San Diego Regional Center put a press release out that they were thrilled to see that 12 units of a 200-unit apartment complex were being put aside for people with disabilities, and they just broke ground on it. So they were very excited that in another 2 years, We'll have 12 units to allow people with disabilities to live in. There are 2,300 people on a waiting list statewide. There are well over 1,000 people that are waiting in San Diego. So what is 12 units doing? It's not doing much. So we need to think big. And we're also looking at aging caregivers. We all know that. This is Betsy. Betsy lives at Noah Homes. The only way to get Betsy to come live with us was to promise her that we'd help her get her mom into assisted living. They were living in an apartment together and helping each other somewhat. We were able to get her mom, Eileen, into a nursing home nearby, and Betsy agreed to move in with Noah. And now they get together for lunch or dinner at least once a week and see each other on home visits, so that's gone well. But this is a national crisis. Aging caregivers are all across the country. We know it's a national problem, and we've decided that partnering is a great opportunity for us to figure out how to solve this. We all know we can't do it by ourselves. We've partnered with My Possibilities in Dallas. They're in an area called Plano, and they're thinking big. They just closed escrow on 180 acres. They got approval from the city of Garland to build 300 homes on an abandoned golf course. Of those 300 homes, they're going to reserve 100 for people with disabilities, and they're going to use proceeds from an HOA to help provide case management, transportation, security, and jobs. But this is telling you what the problem is in some of the biggest states in the country. This tells you some of the costs that you're seeing. If you were in a state school in Texas, $325,000 a year for that person. In California, unfortunately, $725,000 a year to stay in a state school. We don't have state schools, we have developmental centers. And they are slated to be completely shut down by 2019. So you can see the problem. And California is an entitlement state, so why aren't we the highest in funding? I'm not sure why, but Arizona is #1 in funding. So you can see that it's a national trend. It's not getting any better. This is a community that is being proposed in Garland. As I say, it's an inclusive community. We're looking at it as an affinity choice community, meaning anybody has a choice to live there and can live there. And we're going to make sure that we can help them build the memory care homes. When they first thought about this project, they never thought about memory care. Came to visit Noah, we talked to them and said, you've got to do something for those that are aging, and they realized, yes, we do. So we'll be adding the memory care portion to this project. We finished a grant with the ACL back at CMS in August, and our part of the grant was to develop the template and the program model for the memory care homes. So in a month or two, you'll see that template up on their website. It'll be on our website, so anybody that needs to be able to help build a home like this, we're there, and that template will be there and ready to help you get started. So that was our part of the grant. California and Texas are now partnered. We've partnered that situation, and we're working with more builders, more developers, more donors. We have to think big. We can't think small anymore. We have to think big. California and Texas are two of the biggest states. Let's make sure that more states partner, and let's make sure more of us keep in touch. The big question we've all been asking, where are they going to go? This was on our Facebook feed. It's a woman who is 63 years old with a daughter with CHARGE syndrome who's 45. Her dementia is getting worse. The home that's had her for 8 years said it's difficult to provide her medical needs, and they're going to have to give her notice. The only place she could find was a senior living dementia home with elderly that are there, and the staff does not sign nor understand what she needs. Help me, what do? I have terminal cancer. These are not the kind of things we want to get as a message, but we're all dealing with it. This was my dream team, and these are the people who helped us. This was a group of the County of San Diego Regional Center, designers, architects, developers, builders, UCSD Down Syndrome Clinic. We just reached out to everybody we could think about. And you have the same partners in your community. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to say, I've got a big project. They want to be big projects. They want to be involved on a winning team. Don't go in meek and mild. Go in saying, I have this fabulous project, and I'm giving you the opportunity to be part of it. It's going to change your life. That's what you need to do. You cannot think small on these things because 12 units is not going to do it, guys. We've got to be bigger than that. These are some of our partners. Some are national, some are local, but these are all people that stepped up and helped us build these homes, and more than almost $2 million was provided in kind or pro bono. So amazing things happened when we asked, and we just had to continue to ask. These are all names that I'm sure that you've heard. Some of them you've heard of, some of them you haven't, but I know you guys have big developers in your area, big builders. Just please don't be afraid to ask and tell them you're thinking big. These are some of our folks that benefited from the memory care homes. The young lady on the left side passed away. She passed away happily in her home, in her bed, surrounded by her friends on hospice. There was nothing that we had to do except ask the roommate if she wanted to be there, and she said, absolutely, don't move her, she's my friend. So they know what they want, and they know how to do it. We had to raise almost $7 million. We did it very quickly in less than 3 years. There was a need, we made the ask, and people answered. And Noah Homes continues to this day to be debt-free. It gets harder and harder to do and harder to raise that money, but we can do it. This is a little bit of the footprint of the home. As you can see, wide hallways, lots of open space, double bedrooms, single bedrooms, and lots of places to walk and to meander and to keep them engaged. Some of the outside areas of the homes, there's an infinity pathway so that they can walk and they can wander and not have to be restrained. So we're very thrilled with that and very happy that they're able to not feel like they're in any kind of contained environment. The inside of the house, very high ceilings, big open area. We wanted to have one large room and dining room. Kitchen can be contained if we need to. People that want to help can also help. Lessons to be learned. We found out that hospice is something that we have to engage quickly, but sometimes we can't because they don't qualify on the regular rules. So we're actually working with hospice to see if we can change some of those. Suspicious death used to be a standard in a residential facility. You weren't supposed to die in residential homes, so sheriff would come and stand at the door and keep them from saying goodbye. That doesn't happen anymore because hospice is engaged. We don't have those issues. So this is what makes our folks happy. Firemen, activity, independent. The choir needs to sing, and we need to sing really, really loud. DDS said when we came to them several years ago, our state plan is not finished yet, so go ahead and build. We'll forgive you later because we don't know what compliance is. So if you're in a state that your state plan hasn't been built yet, eureka, go, do something, because they don't know for sure what to tell you and they want answers. So please help them and help them figure out how to have those answers. Please visit our website. We have lots of virtual tours of the homes, of our beautiful campus, and of the other homes that are there. And if you have any questions or comments, please contact me. My information is there, and I'd love to hear more from you, because we need to think big and we need to do it now. So thank you very much.